Hey chillers, welcome back to my channel. So, it is Wednesday, which means it is Spooky Day. And today, I'm going to be reading people who wrote down their paranormal experiences, but I'm just gonna say that it's ghost stories! Yay! So, there are 19 stories on this article that I found. So, strap yourselves in, this is going to be a long video. Alright, let's get started. Number 1, the possessed doll. One time I woke up hearing my sister's doll say, "Let's play," but I blew it off. I thought maybe my dog stepped on the doll's hand, and that's why I heard it. So I turned to my opposite side and woke up a few minutes later and saw a dark shadow at the foot of my bed. And when I tried to focus to see if it was my brother or mom, my bed started to shake. I literally covered my head with my blankets and told my mom the next morning. She proceeded to place holy water next to my bed, and it never happened again. I don't like dolls. Dolls creep me out. So I'm just gonna say burn the doll. Alright, number 2. The ghost puppy. Aw, I love puppies. My husband's family have always told me about their house being haunted. I have never once believed any of it and just wrote it off as them being superstitious. Well, a few months back, me, my husband, and my daughter spent the night at my in-laws. I slept in my sister-in-law's room with my daughter, and my husband and his sister ended up crashing in the living room after staying up watching TV. Late at night, I heard the door open and heard little puppy feet walking in and around the room. I felt my sister-in-law's puppy tug at the blanket, and I heard it scratch the bed trying to jump up. I pulled the blanket away and heard him leave. I then texted my husband to come and take the dog outside because I didn't want it to jump on the bed and get scared or have my daughter be scared. I heard my husband walk back and forth down the hallway and then outside. He came back into the room to tell me it was already outside. I thought he was messing with me, so I rolled my eyes and fell back asleep. When I woke up the next morning, he told me about turning off lights and finding them turned back on. I always believe there's a logical explanation for everything, but I just haven't found anything that makes more sense than the house ghost finally accepted me to the family enough to haunt me too. Is everything haunting now? Like, I've read ghost stories about dogs now. I've heard things about humans, chairs, ghosts in chairs. Everything is pretty much haunted. Number 3, the disappearing runner. My son was 3 at the time, and we were walking through the flower garden in my city's historical park. It has this sort of flower maze, and throughout the walk I reminded him to stay on the path so the flowers wouldn't get trampled on. He stopped dead in his tracks and asked in a very confused voice, "Then why is that man running through them into the woods?" When I asked him where the man was, he became very uncomfortable and begged me to carry him to the car so we could leave, and refused to talk any more about what he'd seen. He's 11 now and still gets uneasy when I bring it up or offer to go back to that particular part of the park. I'm telling you, kids are tuned into this stuff. Like, they're more open to these things. Like, they're more inclined to see ghosts or paranormal stuff. Number 4, the explosive seance. 8-year-old me played with the Ouija board with my sibling, and when we tried to stop playing with it, a huge light bulb exploded over our heads. That's why you don't mess with Ouija boards. Why would you play with a Ouija board? I think this is the reason that I chose this article, because of this story. This is one little story is why I wanted this story, or I wanted this article, because of the Ouija board thing. I think there's another Ouija board story in it, though. Yes, I pre-read ahead. I had to do research for this video, so, you know. Number 5. The Shadow People. I still remember this clear as day. When I was 3, I got up in the middle of the night to sleep in my mom's bed. As I crawled in next to her, I looked towards the foot of her bed. There stood the silhouettes of 2 grown men. One had glowing red eyes, and the other had glowing yellow eyes. Both just stood there and stared at me. I assumed I was seeing things and rubbed my eyes repeatedly, but they were still there. I begged my mom to wake up and look, but she kept her eyes closed and kept telling me that it was just a dream. She remembers this too. She says at first she was just groggy and really thought I was dreaming. But after I kept waking her up, she realized how serious it was, or I was, and was too afraid to look. Finally, in sheer terror, I got up and ran back to my bedroom. Years later, we looked it up. Apparently, these are a commonly seen paranormal entity known as shadow people. Silhouettes with glowing red or yellow eyes. Still chills my mom and I to the bone. Demons! Number 6. The Grabbing. When my boyfriend was a teenager, he went to a party across the street at one of his neighbor's houses. His parents and siblings stayed, but he headed home early to go to sleep, since he was tired. He climbed into bed, doors closed, lights off, but just as he was about to doze off, someone or something grabbed his ankles. He said he felt it clear as day, like it wasn't a light touch. Something grabbed him. So of course he jumped out of bed and turned the lights on, but no one was there. He thought maybe his brother or sister had come home to prank him, but he looked everywhere, under the bed, in the closet, the rest of the house, etc., and couldn't find anyone hiding anywhere. And there was no way someone would have even had time to hide, since he got up so quickly. He was so scared he ran across the street back to the party and ended up sleeping in his parents' room that night. I don't blame him. Something grabbed my foot. I'd sleep with my parents too. I mean, something grabbed his ankles. You can't blame him. Number 7. The Argument. Let me start by stating that I never have, or have never, and likely never will, believe in the supernatural in any way. If the following didn't convince me, I shudder to think what could. I was about 19, in college, but living with my mom and massively superstitious Hungarian Graham. We all got along well, save the occasional annoyances 3 adults will inevitably have. Nothing major. We moved into a new place, an older house with lots of creaks and groans. We started jokingly referring to our new invisible housemate, Georgie, saying he didn't like having 3 sassy, headstrong ladies all up in his domicile? I don't know. One evening, all 3 of us were just super cranky, snarking at each other over nothing. As it won't happen in such nonsensical arguments, my gran snapped off something at my mom that hit just the wrong way. She shouted back. I shouted at her not to talk to her mother that way. Talk about irony. And things rapidly spiraled into screaming tears. It was bad. There was, in the center of our dining room table, an enormous plant in a huge ceramic pot. The table itself was super big, old, and solid. As the argument escalated, there was a sound like an explosion, and Georgie decided he had enough caterwauling and chucked that big, heavy plant and pot right off the table. Right off the middle, easily 2 to 2.5 feet from the edge of the solid, sturdy wood table. It absolutely shattered into a bazillion tiny shards. There was no one anywhere near the table, and even had there been, there's no way we could have just bumped it, or any other way possibly accidentally jostled that 60-pound thing onto the ground. I'm just picturing this 60-pound... How thick is this table, though? Leave it to me to ask about the table. But lifting it up, it's like in the center of this table. And like, had enough. Smash. That's terrifying. Number 8. The Eye. One time I was laying in bed, and it was about 1 a.m. I heard someone walking down the hallway right outside my room, and then my door started to creak open. I thought it was my stepfather, since he usually messes with me like that, and the door stopped after a couple of inches. Through the crack, I could see an eye staring right back at me. I shouted at him that I could see him, and I thought at that point he would give up messing with me. After that, the door slammed shut, and there were loud footsteps down the hall, the opposite way of my parents' room. When I went out into the hall to see why he was acting so weird, I saw my parents' door was closed, and my parents were dead asleep. When I asked about it in the morning, they checked the cameras we kept in the hall, and the data from the night before was completely corrupted. Nope. Nope. Time to move. Get out of that house. Number 9. The Ghost Hunters. I went ghost hunting with my ex-boyfriend and 2 of his friends at the West Virginia State Prison last summer. Are you stupid? We were on the solitary floor, in the cell of one of the most brutal killers the prison held. Again, are you stupid? Don't go ghost hunting. Don't go to a prison. Don't go to the most dangerous killer's cell. My ex was holding a tape recorder and I was holding an EMF detector, which only seemed to light up when I asked the questions. My friend asked the ghost, "Do you like the pretty girl who's asking you the questions?" And the EMF detector flashed bright red for a few seconds. After a few more minutes of questioning, we asked the spirit if it wanted us to leave. Once we left the cell, we replayed the tape recorder, and after the question about us leaving was posed, you could hear a faint, "Yeah, good night." No, thank you. No, thank you. No, thank you. I'm not gonna go to a prison, let alone a haunted prison. Number 10. The Haunted Clock. Our family made an annual tradition of attending a pre-Christmas event held at a local church. It was a cross between a craft fair and a garage sale. One section was dubbed the Nostalgia Room, where antiquities, antiques were sold. And it was there that we bought a small... Hold on, I'm trying to move up. Damn. Shoot. Okay. There. And it was there that we bought a small wall-hanging grandfather clock. This clock was haunted. My dad would forget to wind it, but it would still chime on the correct hour even when the hands and pendulum stopped. Lights flickered at random times or turned on in the middle of the night while the switches remained in the off position. We moved out of state, unrelated to the spookiness, and brought the clock with us. This new house also had some minor strange occurrences. One night, my sister and I were alone in the house while my parents were out of state on business. We were watching a scary movie, and that clock chimed, effectively spooking us. We took it off the wall into the garage and smashed it into pieces with a hammer. Flash forward to hours later that night when we were falling asleep, only to hear the now smashed clock chiming continuously from the garage. We opened the door and stared in horror at the pile of glass and gears as it continued to chime. We swept the mess into a garbage bag, drove to the nearest church, found the dumpster, and disposed of the haunted remains. I positively believe in the paranormal, and to this day, clocks still creep me out. Like I said about the last story. Hold on. There we go. My camera was turned. I didn't even realize it. I want to know. No, I don't even want to ask. Number 11. The Hand. I grew up in rural Minnesota, and because we were teenagers, and it's easier to trespass at night when you live in a small town and all your neighbors know you, my brother and cousins and I drove to an old barn when it was dark. My cousins were too scared, so they stayed in the car. But my brother and I went inside, and I was standing near an old water trough and felt a hand on my shoulder. I said, "Ben, I told you not to try to scare me." And from way across the barn, sorry, I'm trying to fix my necklace, I heard Ben say, "I wasn't." And out of the corner of my eye, I saw a white hand, clear as day, on my left shoulder. I started screaming, and we both ran back to the car and drove away as fast as we could. Good idea. You be the people to survive in a horror movie. You run away. You don't stay and investigate. Run. Number 12. The Rainy Day. My friend left for the weekend and gave me their dorm keys. They lived in a different building than I did, one of the oldest buildings on campus, so I could take care of their cat. It was raining and I had my hood up and was looking down at the steps while I walked up the building. As I was walking, I noticed to my right someone wearing a long white skirt, and I thought it was weird, considering the rain and wet brick, to be wearing something like that. But I nodded to her as I passed without looking up. When I got to the door, which was all glass paneling, I looked up and realized there was no one on the porch or the steps behind me. Wait a minute, were they coming up the stairs or down the stairs? They must have been coming up the stairs. Or the steps behind me. I turned around and there was just an empty parking lot. It had been less than a minute since I nodded to her, and there was nowhere to hide and no other doors. She just vanished. No thanks. Number 13. The Gift. I've always been particularly receptive to ghosts and spirits. I can sense their presence very well, and even communicate with them on occasion. I trace this back to a very surreal experience when I was 4 or 5 years old. I lived in a house built in the early 1900s, and my room had twin beds. I slept in one and the other was for guests. I'd always slept in the same bed by the door, but one night I wanted to switch it up a little bit and decided to sleep in the other bed. My parents woke me up the next morning to find my legs covered in blood. They searched my body for cuts or bites in the house for animals. They never figured out where the blood came from. I never slept in that bed again. From that night on, for a few years, I had severe night terrors. Apparently, I'd scream in my sleep with my eyes wide open staring at the ceiling, and my parents would rouse me, and I'd have no memory of what had just happened. And from then on, I've had a connection to the paranormal world. Number 14. The Baby Who Knew. I used to nanny during the summer when I was in high school. The family lived in one of the oldest houses in the county. Now this baby was a nanny's dream. He would ask to go to sleep and he would never wake up in the middle of the night. One Saturday night, I had put the baby to bed and was watching TV downstairs. All of a sudden I hear a blood-curdling scream coming from the baby monitor. I was so terrified I screamed and ran up to the nursery as fast as I could. I opened the door and the baby was standing up in his crib, sobbing and pointing at the rocking chair in the corner. Needless to say, I was completely terrified. I grabbed the baby and we spent the rest of the night downstairs. I explained what happened to his parents when they got home, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're pretty sure this house is haunted." He will point at things and say hi when no one is there. Your baby is seeing ghosts. Yeah, your baby is seeing ghosts. Number 15, the great aunt. Sorry. When I was still dating my wife, we visited her parents' house that was built next to the old family home from the early 1800s here in Sweden. I was walking by it one evening when I felt as if someone was watching me. I looked up into this old abandoned house and saw this old woman looking at me from the second-story window. Hair pulled back. Ooh, excuse me. Hair pulled back, angry eyes, dark dress and white apron, really short, and her eyes following me. I looked at her for like 2 seconds and then hurried back into the house and told everyone what I had seen. And they were like, oh yeah, that's Olga. She likes to keep tabs on things. They showed me a picture, and yep, that was her. The matriarch of the family who the farm and road was named after. My wife's dead great-great-great aunt. Number 16. The imaginary friend. My little sister had an imaginary friend growing up. We didn't think much of it. She would just talk to nothing and play by herself a lot. One day, my mom overheard her talking to her friend, and she kept calling it Free Me. Naturally, my mom asked her, honey, why did you call your friend Free Me? To which my sister replied, because that's what she keeps saying to me. Free me, free me, free me. What does your daughter's friend want to be freed from? And that's not a friend, that's a ghost. Number 17, the Ouija Board. Another Ouija Board story. Like I said, there was another Ouija Board story. My friend and I were messing around with a Ouija board because we were bored. There's plenty of things to do when you're bored. Go outside and play. Or if you're a teenager, play video games. I don't know how old these people are in the story. But anywho, don't mess with Ouija boards. Except she didn't want to touch it because she was really anxious about it. We contacted her dad, who I didn't know died until that day. I really didn't know anything about her dad, to be honest, except that his name was Steve. So we were asking him questions on the board, and my friend wanted to make sure it wasn't me just moving it. She asked what his birthday was, and I had no idea. But the planchette started moving, and she started freaking out because it was his birthday. Later on that night, we were using a ghost hunting app, which I thought was BS, but we just thought it would be funny. Her boyfriend at the time kept calling her, and she was ignoring it. And then the app said his name. We freaked out, of course, and then a few moments later it said, Father, which we took to mean that her dad was still around and was trying to communicate with us. Don't mess with Ouija boards. You dummy, you don't mess with Ouija boards. I've said that too many times. Number 18. The clairvoyant. When I was very young, I was taking piano lessons. I had a dream that my piano teacher had a heart attack while horseback riding. When I woke up the next morning, my mom sat me down. I told her about the dream I had, and she sat back in her chair. She said, Sweetie, I just sat you down to tell you that. And that's how I found out I'm clairvoyant. Number 19, the wrists. When I was about 13 or 14, I felt really ill, and I had to undergo chemotherapy for 14 months overseas, in Singapore. When I got better, I went back to my hometown in Indonesia, and I started experiencing weird things. I share a room and a bed with my sister, since I used to be a scaredy cat and refused to sleep alone. My sister sleeps against the wall, while I sleep on the other side of the bed. One night, I woke up to a slim hand holding my wrist. I thought it was my other sister. She sleeps upstairs, so I decided to let her hold my wrist. But then I realized burn marks started appearing on my wrist, so I screamed. My sister woke up and saw nothing. The next day, we switched places, so I was the one sleeping against the wall. The same thing happened, but the hand appeared from the wall. No, 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 no. Move out of the house. Calm down. My shelf started rattling. Alright, well, there you guys go. That was people's paranormal experiences. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up so I know. Please follow all my social media down below in the description. I will also leave a link to a playlist of all my ghost story videos down in the description. Alright, you can click my bubble to subscribe to my channel. And my last video is right here. Alright, I will see you guys next week. Or next Monday. Peace out, chillers.